Welcome, guys, to the SBN Network podcast. I'm your host, Steph, and with me is...
I'm Scott.
Yes.
And I'm Scott. We know how to do intros now.
This is a podcast where we take some deep dives into some wonderful artists and kind of look at their account in a different way, which is always a little bit positive, a little awesome, and you guys can enjoy their accounts with us.
And now that we've gotten more professional, I try not to say any dumb stuff.
Mm-hmm. And I try to at least always end on a good note. There it goes.
And
go
for
now.
real.
Yeah.
So it begins.
Yeah, we keep these things pretty chill, Jason. So that's why I'm excited that you're going to be on chatting with us. And then I get to know you a little better, too, because I don't really get to one-on-one chat. But I wanted to say welcome. Thank you for joining us on our hour of Steph and Scott talk about how wonderful you are, basically, on the show. So
That's what we do.
Yeah. I'm honored. I really, truly am honored to be here. And what you guys are doing is awesome. The interviews you do, not only the caliber of like talented people, but just generally good people that you get to have conversations with and seeing and get to knowing them better through your interviews. It's really great what you're doing, and I'm honored to be here and actually be a follow-up to your previous people who you had on, your guests. So thank you guys.
Good. Well, welcome.
Yeah, I'm actually really excited to have you back on too, because now we get to actually see all your work, and so much of what you do is visual, because that's your life. You're a designer. You create everything, and so being able to see it and showcase it, I think is going to be so much fun. Because look at your background. I'm very excited about all this.
I know.
Absolutely.
I do art direction also with my client work, so I'm always like, okay, what am I going to do? Okay, what am I going to set up whenever I'm doing video type stuff? Like I've got all these like toys and things and prints and all kinds of stuff. I'm like, all right, well, let's rearrange it so it's different every time. It's kind of a waste of time too, but I enjoy it.
No, it's a good waste of time.
No.
That's how it should be.
I think we rearrange a room in our house, like, because my boyfriend collects as well, like at least once a month, because you want something bigger, you want to add something from the collection into a different place, different light. So it's a lot of fun. So it's part of the process too.
And you take advantage of it when your figures do the domino and just like fall off the shelf. Like, all right, well, let's start
I guess
over.
we're changing this. Yep. I've been there.
No choice.
Yep. This is a mess now. Let's reset it. So
Exactly. It's a lot of fun. It's always fun too, because like Scott's thinking about adding display cases for the first time, and I'm excited to see what he does.
Yeah. It's so fun.
I've never displayed my stuff, so
it's interesting because this is above our garage, and so it's supposed to be like a game room or an extra bedroom, and so it has been that before. But over time, we've kind of, like, my kids are getting a little older, and we've got like the landing where they put up, they've got an Xbox and PlayStation, and so that's where they kind of hang out. And so this room just wasn't being used. I'm like, hey, honey, do you care if I move the stuff just out of everywhere in the house and just move it to this space? She's like, yeah, that's a good idea.
I'm great with that.
Yeah.
So it got adopted.
And for the same, I think it was last year during Thanksgiving, kind of that break, before that, I went to IKEA and picked up a bunch of storage and like the Detolfs and the like this piece of furniture and basically like a shelving, a closet system called like packs, and installed that like over the holiday. And it just feels so great. I mean, as soon as you get your shelves in, it's just going to change your space and like how you see it. And I think you're just going to enjoy so much just walking into it and seeing your pieces displayed. So I'm excited to see what you end up doing with that.
Yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be fun.
Do you know what you have in mind?
I don't, because seriously, I've never been a displayer. I don't display. Part of that was because I moved a lot. I will be honest. Somebody who was constantly moving around, it was hard to get situated and make things look the way I wanted them to look. So, and every time you move, you get rid of your furniture, you start over again, then you move again, you get rid of your furniture, you start over. So it was like I was never taking things with me. And so I don't know. I don't even know how I would approach it. I've even considered the idea of getting a little like wild because I tend to think in a weird way and not doing the more classic setups, but looking for like old, like old cabinets and old display things and old like medical cases and stuff, and like painting them all kinds of wild colors and just doing something like really strange and out there with it. So I've even thought of going that route, doing something that's like kind of weird and kind of antique-y looking, but putting all my Star Wars stuff in it. So I don't know. I'm really not sure, but I need to, because now we've talked about it a little bit before we went live. Like, I'm more situated. Planning on staying for a while. I'm not really planning on like moving next year. So it's a good time to start thinking about like, setting up a fun space and really optimizing. So
will it be in the same area where you are now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Nice.
I've pretty much absorbed the entire basement, and my poor wife. Yeah, the only reason she ever comes down here anymore is if she needs to like grab laundry or something like that. But even that, if she can, she's just like, why don't you go get that stuff? You go walk amongst your things, and I'll just stay up here where it's safe.
Yeah, it's funny. Periodically, my wife will come upstairs. It's kind of at the end of that in the house, and so sometimes she'll walk in and she just looks around, like when I'm in between shoots or whatever it might be, and it's just a disaster, and I know it's a disaster, but I can always close the door. She walks in, she's like, "This room, it stresses me out." I'm like, I know. I'm sorry. And then, generally it takes me like an hour just to like tidy things up. I'm like, okay, this looks good. And then the next night it's like a disaster again.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man.
It's functional for 24 hours and then just falls apart again. Yeah, I know. That's how I go. So.
It's funny for like habits and stuff like that too, because when I come back from shooting outdoors, I know Scott knows this too. It's like you're filthy too. So my boyfriend's like, I have to pat you off, hand me your toys, let me come inside, and then you go around the back and we'll take care of it.
Just hose you. Hose. Yeah, hose you off, just dust you. Yeah. That's the nature. That's awesome. It's being outside, man.
Jason, my first question is like, really, like, where does it all start? Where did work more or less start in Jason's brain? Like, is it like before college? Like, where did this idea all spark from, the adventure?
I think just like a lot of us, we've always loved collecting. If we're doing this now, it's been something that was part of us as like growing up. Mm-hmm. And so, kind of the resurgence of all these IPs that we love. Now we're getting like better versions of them, and they still have like that retro feel. Like, there's something about that keeps me wanting to collect and wanting to, buy stuff that I don't need.
Yeah.
But that I love.
Yeah.
So I think it's always been there as far as my love for it. And just like many of our stories, we kind of got through high school. It's like, okay, you need to start focusing on school, what you're going to do for a job. And some of us kind of just left that behind, felt like we were maturing, and toys didn't really need to follow us. For everybody, their parents were able to like keep them and not like sell them in a garage sale, like their toys. Just it's always been a part of who I am and something I love. But it wasn't until probably I would say the resurgence of Star Wars and Force Awakens, for me, brought me back into just collecting and seeing like the Black Series line. I'm like, man, these are really, really highly like great sculpts, highly articulated, and that kind of got me back into it. And then just the hype around Star Wars coming back, that's one of my first loves. But yeah, kind of what I do during the day, I do design and animation and motion design and graphic work, and so I've always been kind of in that space of like kind of creativity, and never really behind the camera so much, but a lot of it was like post-production work. So my roles generally would be take video footage and then put graphics on top, or create graphics from scratch. And a lot of it was like kind of on the post side of things. So I think it was December of 2015, I ended up getting a digital SLR, a Canon 6D, which I'm still shooting with now. And I wanted to learn photography because I'm in the space. I understand the concepts, but didn't really get it. Like, I didn't have the chance to learn it.
I feel like that happens a lot with creative people. Is you get to that point where you understand the principles, you understand art, you understand the aesthetics. Like, that all makes perfect sense. And then you want to try to capture it. And again, I feel like with creative people, a phone's not generally going to cut it, and you end up feeling like you want to try all the things, you want to try all the settings, you want to use the equipment to its fullest. And I know so many people like that same situation where they were involved in something that was not photography related, but then they were like, wait, I'm kind of part of this space, I'm gonna go get a real camera and make it work. And so that's really interesting that that's kind of how you got to it. So
yeah, and then just having the figures. My parents and my brother bought me a couple of Black Series like that Christmas. And like, hey, I'm starting to see people shooting toys on Instagram. Like from my design account, it was crossing into that. I was like, this is really cool. And I've got a figure. I want to learn how to do low light photography. Got my camera and started doing it. And then it's like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. And it was like coming up with different ways, like different techniques that worked for me, especially like being in the post-production side and doing like compositing. Like I just made it work, and it made sense for me, like doing the digital backgrounds, the digiorama stuff. So that was, it was kind of like the first thing, like, okay, this is working. And I have kind of a leg up because I understand some core concepts, like you were saying, in composition and design, and just like how do you set up a camera, what angles look good, what works. So it was just kind of from there, just keep experimenting and see what works. And then I was kind of hooked.
Yeah, it gets addicting. So
it does. It does. Obviously, we're still here.
That's really cool. What was your, if you don't mind, like what was your schooling? Like what did you focus on in school?
So ever since I remember as a kid, I was always like drawing. I loved illustration. I liked comic books, and not really so much for the stories, but just the artwork. And so I would buy comics, Marvel comics, and just have those as kind of reference. And at first, like there were some times when I can't draw this, but I'm going to trace over it. And as like in that tracing over it, understanding like how proportions work and how you get certain things to like a shading and lighting, like that was helpful. But then always was just drawing, like freehand drawing. So that's always been what I think I knew I wanted to do professionally. And at the time when I was a senior in high school, that was when Photoshop had been around, but it was becoming a lot more accessible. And so I was able to learn how to use Photoshop along with all the art classes I was in, like doing like traditional media. Was able to incorporate that in kind of the graphic design class. And that got me hooked, and then ended up going to Oklahoma State University and was there and just got a Bachelor of Fine Arts with a focus on like computer design. And that's been my focus. There's a lot of other things that I enjoy doing, but art has always been like part of me, and like the creative side has always been like part of me. So
yeah, it's always been in the foreground. Yeah, no, it is interesting how a lot of creative people, I've spent my life around creative people, and we jump in and out of things. We like to try different things. Most of us are not like set in stone, like this is all I can do, this is all I want to do. I don't know a ton of artists or creatives who are just like, this is it. This is the one thing. Most of us want to experiment. We want to do this. We want to try music. We want to try, painting. We want to try like writing. Like you want to experience all those different things. And that's what I think is so interesting about your feed, and why I went back to the drawing board after I had done your set, was your feed is more than just toy photography. It's a whole story. It's, oh no, is someone's alarm going off? It's everything. It's like I think I said it like this. I can't remember what I exactly wrote because I was just typing and typing and typing. Like Jason is a toy photographer, but work more or less is kind of like a full experience. Wow. And I think that's what's so interesting about your page is it really, you can tell you're an explorer. You're not just a toy photographer on your page. You're somebody who is trying to bring people in, let them see your process, even if it's messy sometimes, and also bring them into the other parts of what you enjoy as well.
Yeah.
And I think that that's really cool. Like, I know it's fine, but I know my page tends to be very hyper focused. It's very specific. It's very, like I've described it before. I think of it and curate it the way I would like a gallery show back when I worked in like galleries and stuff.
Absolutely.
But your page is more like stream of consciousness. It's like it goes with you. Like you can tell, like you can kind of see what you're doing, like where you're at certain points. And as if you just scroll through it one by one rather than looking at it as a full page, and you just like go through the photos, you can see your brain moving. And I think that that's just so fascinating. And it really, I think that's why, like I said, I took your photos and I went, nope, this is not what I wanted to do. Let's start over, and had to reevaluate like my plan, because like everything that I had been planning for like a week and a half just was like, this is a train wreck and not what I intended, and did not capture the idea of what like work more or less represents.
Wow. Well, I would say you probably nailed that, because there are a lot of times when I'm like, this is not up to snuff. This is not my vision, and like very kind of hard on myself with shots, even though I'm like, this gets the message across. It's good. But then the other part of me, like the perfectionist side of me, is like, you need to start over. So
I know
you at least nailed that.
Good. That was it. Maybe that was supposed to happen. It was like inevitable.
I'm so sorry
like,
to put you through that.
This is what you did to me. But but no, that's exactly what it was. It was, I sat there, I looked at the series, and like, you know, people have probably seen the photos by now. It was originally I had a little like summer set with like a digital backdrop with like stormtroopers drinking like little mint juleps on Tatooine or whatever.
I love that.
And I was like, oh, this is great. And I went, no, this is not, this doesn't make any, this is not it. This isn't the whole of what you do. It was a photo that was fun, and it had the humor, and it had the digital backdrops, and it had the use of like your kind of steeper angles and all this, like, you know, very technical things that you do. But it was not capturing the whole story of your work. And I think that's what people should really embrace when they look at your page, is look at it as a full experience. Don't go to Jason's page and look at it like, oh, that's a nice photo. Like, that's a nice photo. Like look at it, be a participant in it. And now I'm preaching at all of you, but seriously, like follow it and start, like scroll back and go through it and like live that experience, because I think that's really what your page is about. So there we go.
Well,
my tirade.
I'm glad this is being recorded. No, because that's so cool just to hear that, because, you know, a lot of times I think all of us, there's something that we might have in mind, or not necessarily like a goal, but like, this is what we want to say. This is our message. And sometimes it's difficult to know if that message hits, or if it hits right the way you want it to. And good or bad, sometimes it doesn't, but it hits in a different way. And so just hearing that is good, because I think all three of us, like, we put a lot of work into what we do. And a lot of times we maybe overthink things, but just to know that the effort that we put into it is seen, and maybe some of that's like just subconsciously recognized. That feels good. And to me, I think it's really about, kind of to your point of what I really want to like tell stories. I really want to, you know, make something different versus just like a beauty shot all the time. Because I started with that, and I really enjoyed doing some of those, like even some of like the Black series, like portraits, or some of the you know, the 1/6 figures, and doing them looking hyper real and feeling like they're, you know, right out of the film, like a screen grab or something. And I loved doing that. I still do, but I'm just finding I've got limited time more and more these days, and I don't have the ability to just come up here every single night and shoot something. And I've always loved puns, you know, or crossovers with different IPs. A lot of my early work was that, like pop culture stuff where I just mash things together.
Mm-hmm.
Like He-Man, and I have the Power Glove, you know, like with a Nintendo Power Glove, like
Yeah.
those things, like always, I loved that. And I just realized, like, why is that not being reflected in my work? And seeing, you know, good friends like Jax, Plastic Action, Nose Rain, I would say those two guys, and Dwayne Shoots Toys, like they were really at that time when I was like, why am I not, like, I'm being true to myself in my work, but I can do so much more. And a lot of that work that was kind of starting to crop up with like those three and other people, of course, was really inspiring. Like, I'm just gonna not focus on trying to get 3 shots posted and making, because I was like you, like Scott, like trying to keep things curated.
Yeah.
Like a row of 3, and everything needs to be from the same. It's going to visually be the same thing, but 3 different angles or whatever, or tell a story in the triptych. It was like really breaking from that OCD like mindset. Felt pretty good. Like, I can just focus on one thing, and then if I really want to do a triptych, do a behind the scenes, and then maybe like a breakdown, and then there's. So really, just changing that, helped me realize that I could come up with concepts that might take longer to execute, but in the end, I felt like I was putting better work out there, and I'm posting less frequently now, but I feel like my work is better because I'm more focused on like a concept.
Yeah.
And I just have more fun with it these days.
Yeah, and again, it shows you're focused more on.
Thanks, man.
And I think I referred to it, and I didn't mean it in like a gross, like corporate way or anything, but you're doing it in like the work more or less like personal brand. I like the identity of who you are versus just like, here are some photos, here are some photos, here are some photos. Like, obviously, like, you know, you're a great photographer. We all know. Great, awesome. But you're more than that. And that's what I think is the fun part, is the more than that part. It's like, you know, it's being a great photographer is cool. Very, you know, it's a great thing to be a great photographer.
Yeah.
But like you said, you were looking for more. You were looking for something else. And like I said, it shows. You can see that transition. Like you said, when you start and you go all the way back, because I scrolled back I want to say a couple of years.
Yeah, I had to go all the way back. So
I went pretty far back, and when I went back and started going through it, you can see the transition. You can see like the experimentation start appearing, and then all of a sudden something happened where you went like, and you just went, and then it was like, oh, the identity of the page is here now. It's arrived. We've arrived at what this is meant to be all along. And I think that's just, I love that. I'm fascinated by that.
That's one thing. So I struggled with this a lot, just as a developing artist and creative type. You both might have as well. But one thing that I hear from other people is like, if it's with illustration or design or photography or videography, like I don't have a style. Like I don't have a signature style. And I struggled with that a lot because there are a lot of influences. I mean, if you see like the artwork that I've got here, like I love everything from this like realistic illustration, you know, like as far as like portraiture and stuff, to like vector, like flat stuff, to like stylistic, like caricature, like all that stuff I love. And I was experimenting with that and like trying to figure out my style. In reality, I was being influenced by a lot of different styles. Yeah. And in a sense, that was kind of my style in a way, but I always had struggled. Like, I don't have a style like these guys do. And as an artist, I should have a brand, right? And so much of that, like over the years, I realized your style will kind of manifest itself without you having to define what that is or have it to verbalize it or point out, like, I use this color, I use this XYZ. It's really cool to see how that's kind of just, it's come without, when I let go of that, that's when I allow myself to like not be pressured into my own kind of voice. And like you said, like it just kind of like slipped into that. Like, this is where I feel comfortable. And I don't know if you're the same. Like when I go through feeds, I can look at a lot of photos. I would probably say like 60-70% of them, I can just look at them without reading whose it is and know who shot the photo. And it's weird. It's like, I can't I can't even tell you exactly why.
Yeah.
But a lot of times you just recognize that style, and the artist probably would not even really to say, they would probably say, I don't have a style. I don't know. I just shoot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of that point. That's something I was talking about recently with a younger artist. And so that was interesting to hear. But yeah, it's cool to see that kind of come and through my work, like the Work More or Less stuff.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm really feeling comfortable now. But, maybe in another year, I'm like, hey, I want to try this. And so maybe my style or my voice kind of shifts a little bit.
Yeah.
But that's what's fun about, like you were saying earlier, about being a creative type. I like dabbling in things and learning new skill sets. And
it's healthy.
It is for me. It is. Yeah. For sure. And I love it. So
speaking of that stuff, you should definitely show the first.
Well, the first slide I have is more his brand because
his brand, good, okay.
Jason takes like the funnest behind the scenes photos, so I had to showcase, especially the one with this one with him looking through like stuff. They couldn't pick him out for this stuff, but I really wanted to showcase because the way you present your brand is also uniquely you, because it's definitely very fun and it's very, now that I know you a little bit better, I can see it in every image. So
that's pretty cool. It's funny that the one you're showing right there with me peeking through, I don't remember, there's sometimes when you'll see, and there's not like a specific example, but when you have people who are building miniatures or even like hyper real, like alley dios, Euler's Workshop, Jordan does amazing work. And when he first posted like his alleys, and then he like put his hand in there, or he like revealed it, or like spun a quarter or whatever it is, and it like just like completely takes you out of that, and you're like, wait a second, that's not real. I think that was really one of the first times where I actually included like me, like myself, into like something that I built or a diorama, and it felt a little weird and uncomfortable. But then I realized that captures, in the same way, it captures people's attention, because we're masters of what we do. We can change the angle, and it feels like a 6-inch figure is 6 feet tall. And so to kind of like step back and say it's okay to like break the kind of the magic behind what the camera is seeing. That's kind of one of the first times I did that. I was like, oh, that's actually kind of interesting. And that's the stuff that people would comment on and say, oh wow, that's what breaks through that clutter of like the work that I was generally doing. And so just trying to do something different and feeling okay and comfortable with it. It's kind of fun to experiment with. So that's funny you picked that one.
it gives your page character. It gives people like I said, the whole page becomes the character. The whole page becomes the experience.
Yeah.
It's not just your photographs here and there that are, getting people's attention. It's everything. These are all things that truly like encompass your identity, your brand identity, your personal brand. It's awesome. I think you are such a master of it. And I think also by doing this, I honestly think you pull in people too who aren't necessarily into toy photography, because you're giving other people the opportunity to kind of see the world that you exist in. And I think that's really fascinating too, is, I would be willing to bet, other than like a few random friends, I would say most people who follow me are toy photographers.
Right.
I don't necessarily think that's the case with your page. I feel like your page would have a lot of just people fascinated with the process and that are attracted to what you've created, as far as, everything from the littlest things down to your logo, to these interactive shots where you actually see you in the frame. I mean, that's funny. That's going to get people. And the humor you use even in your scaled photos, again, I think appeals to a wider audience. Like people think it's funny. There's a photo, I don't know if Steph put it in, but the one where Boba Fett's taking the selfie with the drink, like, and I think that's hysterical. And you don't need to be a Star Wars fan to find that funny. Everybody knows that concept, the idea of Han Solo being taken away. Like, it's hilarious. Anybody can watch that and look at it and just start saying this is fantastic. And I think that's your appeal. I think that is what really, really pulls people in.
Thanks. Yeah. The other thing that you can also see is, it's interesting because I think with the whole like toy photography in this account, at first I think a lot of us too were like, okay, I don't really want to show my face of like what I'm doing. I just want the work to speak for itself. And this really is pretty like niche and pretty nerdy. And for a while there, like I would be really embarrassed if it came like in conversation with real people in real life.
Yeah.
And so as you can kind of see, for a while there, it was just about the work. It was just about like curating and really kind of almost seeing it like a gallery. And that's how I was trying to present my own like personal work too, like on my website or on Flickr or whatever it might be, like trying to just show my work. But as I started seeing people, I guess I recognized when I was seeing people who were creating content and they were doing like behind the scenes, or they were talking about their work or including themselves in the photos, I realized I connect with them because I feel like if I know what they look like, I see them, I hear how they speak. I can see their personality in the work, but also just actually physically get to see them. There's something really, there's something powerful about that, where I would be willing to, people that I, follow on YouTube, and I'm watching the content they're creating and seeing them talk about like, doing head sculpts or painting or whatever. I feel like I kind of know them because they've shared and they've opened themselves up.
Yeah.
And so just like with this photo and some other things, that's when I was like, you know what, if I want people to know who I am. I'm to the point where like, I'm going to Comic-Con. I'm nerdy. Like I'm all in.
Yeah.
There's nothing to be, I'm not ashamed. There's a whole tribe of us.
Yeah.
Whether the world likes it or not.
Yeah,
and so
absolutely.
I was like, really like, there's no reason to not embrace this. And in the same sense, like slowly like feeling comfortable in front of a camera versus always being behind the scenes. And so, then doing the live streams during 2020, because I just missed everybody. And I love talking to people, to a detriment. My wife, my kids and wife went with me to Comic-Con, I think in 2017. And it was so fun. We loved it. But because I am who I am, going around seeing people and that I've talked to online for years sometimes, and she and the kids, like they don't have attention span. They're just looking at things like, okay, we're done. But he's been talking for 45 minutes to this one person that I have no idea who it is.
Yeah.
So I enjoy doing that too. So it's fun to kind of open up a little bit and like just show yourself and be on screen. And I think people are able to kind of connect with you a little bit more. So
yeah. Oh, I agree. It's I've talked about this with people in the past when I worked at the gallery in New Jersey. You would always, art sold most when the artist was there.
Yeah.
Rule of thumb. Art is, and I'm not talking about sales here. I'm just talking about the idea of, again, showing yourself. People like that connection, like you said, and that is the artists themselves would sell the art. Their work was whatever. They could be the most talented person in the world, but the person was what was getting people's attention. And to be honest, I think that's why the idea of galleries is kind of changing a lot because of that. I think galleries are moving to more of like an experience type thing rather than we sell art. Like that's not really the direction anymore. It's and I think part of it is because people are looking for that connection. They're looking to connect to the artist. They want to, in this world where you've got, your favorite musicians are on Twitter and on like all these social media platforms that you can almost interact with them, even if they've got bazillions of people following them.
Crazy.
You feel that connection, and I think connection is becoming more and more important. So it makes sense that this is kind of the direction you started shifting into. So
it took a while to get comfortable, though. I mean, honestly, and I've been just in my life, like I've been on stages. I've been like I've talked to people like mass crowds of people and things like that, and so I'm fairly comfortable, but also pretty uncomfortable at times. And so like forcing myself to do it here, like through the Work More or Less type brand, it was definitely it took a little time, but it's just fun. It's fun to actually connect with people. And this is an amazing way to do it.
There's a lot of really kind and just like genuine people in our community, and it's just nice to be able to connect with people that you might not talk to unless you go live, like people that jump in randomly. Like you had the guy who made the cards with the sneakers on him. I never even heard of him before, and then he goes on there just like he makes sneaker cards and he follows toy photographers. So that's how like genius like our little
well, just to give him a shout out, his name's Herson, and basically he's a designer, but he's made these little cards. They're called, it's RAIR, rare, and like collectible cards of sneakers and high-end collectible sneakers. And I forgot what the tagline is, but basically making cards for sneakers you can't afford or something like that. Like you'll never get because they're so hard to get, like collectibles. But he's got this card set, and he just jumped in. I think he bought a badge and supported us. And I was like, hey, thank you so much. We're just kind of talking to people. Do you want to just jump on real quick? And then this whole conversation, like with Steph, what you were talking about, we talked about what he was doing in these projects, and it was incredible. And he actually sent me some cards, and they are absolutely beautiful. So like you said, you just never know. There's so many kind and creative people, and there's so many great conversations that can be had and are being had here in the community. So that's pretty fun. It makes you want to keep doing it too, because it's like a treasure trove in a sense.
The people are what keep you. That's the thing. Like I always say this, like when you notice people who kind of like drop off the face of the earth periodically on social media, I feel like it's the people who don't interact. Like they could be the most talented people, but if you're not doing this for fun, if you're not doing it for the right reasons, if you're not doing it to meet people, and I mean, you could have all the followers in the world and all the likes in the world, it's not going to really do anything for you.
You got to have a little bit more. You got to have that connective tissue.
Exactly. And I think, again, we go back to it, you do it perfectly. So,
well, I don't know about perfectly, but I try.
There it is.
Man. There we go.
Gosh.
That's my first photo.
On the feed. Yeah. That's what it was.
The Darth Maul one. Yeah. So this is kind of what I was mentioning. I've used Photoshop in my entire career, and so when I edit my photos, I use Photoshop, and that's what I did with the Darth Maul photo. And I would do it differently now, just how I did the lightsaber, how I did some of the effects and things. But this was the first time that I was like, what, I can use instead of printing off something or creating like some kind of crazy diorama, just like what I do in production. And at the time it was more like green screen. Right now, with what Mandalorian's done, where they're actually projecting it in real space and then you're shooting it, that wasn't even a thought in my mind. But now, or at the time, it was more like, okay, you shoot over green screen and then you change out the background. I was like, well, if I can put an image on the screen and then put the figure in front of it, I'm going to get the natural light on the figure from that. And I was like, and I can change the photo. I can just move the background around so the composition works around the figure. Like, man, this is the way to do it. So that's kind of when the light went on. I'm like, I can incorporate digital backgrounds into my work, and it's gonna like make things a lot more efficient in how I shoot.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's the first. Actually, it's the first photo, and that's the first time I think I did I just call it Digirama. I don't think anybody at the time, like, there wasn't a name for it. I was like, diorama, digital, Digirama. I like wordplay.
Sorry, guys, I had to sneeze.
We'll just make that. Yeah.
It's funny because like as much as your technical skill has changed, as you can see, like for you, like I'm sure you look back and you're like, oh my gosh, like this is so long ago, such a different way of thinking. You can still tell, and this is what I always point out with creative people, is you can still tell that your sense of composition has always been there. Your understanding of art and what is visually pleasing is ingrained in you from your interest in art for your entire life. And that's, again, I point this out to people so often who, are frustrated because they can't get the technical stuff. They can't quite get the technical stuff. They can't. And I'm like, yeah, but you've got the the artistic understanding of it. And
Right.
that's, I feel like that is such a challenge to learn that. I feel like you can't even learn that for some people. And that's the thing with you, is you have that eye and that understanding for like what makes a composition aesthetically pleasing. And that has continued through your entire, since
Yeah.
2016.
I'm glad that those principles work, and that I wasn't starting from scratch.
Yeah.
Because I probably wouldn't have stuck with it, just because it's taken years to just understand some of those design principles. So yeah.
There's some craziness there, but yeah, I love that photo. The one on the right is just too freaking funny.
Thanks.
Like, it was like, it's such a good one. And I love the thought that went into it. It's just
Thank you.
like, when you come up with an idea like this, are these just things that are just floating around in your head that just like you all of a sudden just go, oh my gosh, this would be entertaining? Because I don't
Sometimes.
think I made a comment to somebody who commented on the photo that I had taken, where I said, like, I don't play with humor that often. Like,
Mhm.
I mean, I like humor. I think I love funny things, but
Yeah.
I don't typically do it with my toys. Like, it's not the direction I tend to go.
Right.
And your ideas are so like just fun and original, and
Thanks.
they don't feel like they never feel like
They're not
something I've
overdone.
seen before. Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
an overdone thing. Whereas I see a lot of that. Like, I'll see the humorous things. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I that's funny. And don't get me wrong, I don't mind like people like kind of imitating people and
Oh,
whatnot. But
sure,
your
sure.
ideas
I do that
are
too.
so often like just completely original, out of the box thoughts, and I'm really, really blown away by that. And like, yeah,
Thanks.
do they just like, again, come into your head, or is it something you're kind of like think?
It depends sometimes. So for a while there, when we started, well, when I say like a group of us, but Swit Picks, so Spencer
Mhm.
Witt and Black Series, Isaiah Takahashi, we met each other through toy photography, and we were doing kind of a weekly feature. We'd feature a figure. We're still doing it, just not, we aren't able to do it weekly as much anymore with our schedules, but we're called the C3P Bros.
Yes.
And
That's
so we
good.
started that years ago. And so a lot of what comes from this is like, okay, this was one of the collaborations. And so we each shot boba. So gave us an opportunity to, once we got new figures in hand, we can all kind of play around with it, shoot it, and then we post at the same time. And then that's just kind of fun to see each of our takes on the figure.
Yeah.
So over the course of the years, our work has kind of evolved and changed, and kind of the same way, when you go through both of their pages, you can kind of see their journey.
Yeah.
It's almost like really like a diary in a sense,
Mhm.
right? And so it's really cool that that's something that we've kind of kept up with, and that, like, for this one, I was like, okay, well, I know we chose Boba Fett, great figure. What are some things I can do to enhance the figure? What are some props that I might have? This Han and Carbonite was actually a cast one of my friends gave me, and it was cast in clear resin. And I think this was probably a year and a half ago. Like, I'm notorious about getting sculpts and customs and maybe starting and not finishing in like a year. And so
I
this
feel
was one that
that.
I didn't have painted. And I thought, okay, if I had this painted, I can incorporate that with boba, and what would be kind of humorous. And, we're just kind of looking around to see what I have prop wise. Like a beer, I can make a little phone that's just like foam core, or like a mat board, and then a piece of like plastic, and just put it together, and it just looks like a phone, right?
Yeah.
Nothing really spectacular about that. I'm like, it would be really funny to have him doing kind of like a selfie. The other thing I'm very aware of is camera angles too, because I also find that from just being able to kind of break out from what we're all seeing, like from the norm, is like changing that perspective, doing something a little dynamic, that it's not going to be straight on. Like this first one, it's very, very eye level straight, right? You got a really sharp silhouette. Whereas this one, you're featuring more of the sculpt, and coming up higher, I was able to show more of Han. So a lot of different factors that come into play with that. But yeah, I think a lot of it does sometimes come with, I see a figure, maybe sit with it for a couple of days and maybe pose it and like, oh, this would be really funny. Or I always love like Mando and Grogu. I mean, you might even have one of those shots come up here in a minute, but I just love the idea of like playing with that relationship as like a guardian and a child. And what are the fun things that I remember doing as a kid that they could kind of be mimicking. And so it's kind of all over the place, but yeah. Oh, I was going to say is this shot made me like, okay, I'm going to finish this Han and carbonite. And so for 30 minutes, like I just need to put some silver on it. Done. Looks good. All right. So now I finished it after a year and a half. So it
sometimes you need that kick to do it though. Sometimes you need a reason. We've got a photographer coming on soon who, because of the photographer coming on, I'm finally forcing myself to build something that I've been talking about building for a very long time. And it's like, sometimes you need that. You need that kick that just says like, okay, come on, just do it. Just finish it up already. Like the time
you're
has
like,
come.
why did it take me this long?
I know, because
like,
you do it and you're like, oh, it's done. All right.
Yeah. Overthinking it, over engineering. Like, I need to have the right tool to be able to do this. When it's like, I know, just do it.
Just do it. Just do it with what you've got. I know. I'm the same way.
Yep. But yeah, it's fun making those little props too. Oh, love it. I'll tell you a little bit about this too, but go ahead.
This is great.
Yeah.
This is one of my favorites. I always like how bright some of your images are, like the way that your light, you go with the warmer tones, because I'm always super jealous. My images always end up being cooler than I want them to be. Yeah. And I just like the way that it's like a sunrise behind them. It's so cool. It's just so amazing. So I had to throw this one in there too, because this is just fun. So.
I did a version of this shot. I don't know if I posted it. I think I did, like in the scroll or in the I think in another, I did this version because I couldn't decide. I love this bright orange, yellow and red, but then I did one with a cooler blue because I was on the fence. I'm like, I really like this one, but do I want to go this way? So I did both. And that was the same thing where I'm just switching out the background. I just painted a background in Photoshop and just changed the color of it, which is really handy.
You think about your lighting, which is just fantastic, because some people have lights and whatnot, and there's nothing wrong with it, but they're just they're just playing, and it is what it is. But there's a lot of thought in the way that your characters are lit, and
not all of them.
I'm sure there's plenty that are just like, it just happened, but it's like you do a great job whether you mean to or not. The light feels intentional, almost always. It never just feels like, oh, I needed to throw light here, so I just put a light on it and it's great now. Like it feels intentional, and like in this is a perfect example. The last shot, perfect example. Like it feels there's meaning behind it, and I think it's very easy to just light things for the sake of lighting things, but I don't feel like you do that. I feel like there's reason for every light that you set up, and it's. I'm
still trying to get better with that. Honestly, that's one thing that I think, even when I see other people's work, I'm like, man, that lighting is awesome. It's so like either it's focused or it highlights what it's you're intentionally trying to draw the eye to certain parts, or moving around the image. And some people it's just kind of the same way. I'm like, man, that's perfect. So I'm always looking at my photos and like, okay, this works, but I'm always wanting to like just be better, like figure out ways to light or ways to focus, like kind of help the viewer around. But I appreciate you saying that. It's fun. It's really amazing too. I mean, when you guys are shooting, even just taking a shot and like, okay, what if I just move the light here, like just a foot? And then you get like more rim lights, or like with this one, seeing all the pores, like with that blue light over his face, you're starting to see like the pores, but you still have some of that orange spill. I was
going to say specifically, like getting really detailed, the light behind the mask around his eyes. That
Yeah,
would have been
man,
super easy to lose. Anybody could have lost that. And to be honest,
that's hard.
people might not have noticed. People would have just been like, "Oh, it's still a good photo," but you didn't lose it. Like you can see the lids and you can see like the edge of the nose there and stuff. I mean, that's
You
that
have to with
changes this
figure.
photo. Like
Yeah.
this photo could have gone a completely different direction if there
Yeah.
was no light behind the mask, because it
This one,
humanizes it.
that
So
shot, this is actually really difficult to shoot because when you've got those key lights and things, I mean, you can see the
Mhm.
shadow right over his right eye. It's really, really dark and heavy. And I don't remember if I did like a longer exposure and kind of like move the light a little bit just to
Yeah.
help fill that in. I don't remember what I did, but yeah, that I remember it being tricky. And I probably took like 30, 40 shots
of course,
of
you
this.
have to.
Yeah, because
But you nailed it, so
thanks,
it was
I
worth it.
appreciate it. Yeah. So okay, so one other thing I wanted to go back, since you chose this one, this was part of, and you know stuff, you probably do too, Scott, but Iwawatu, Tom, he did the 6 portraits study. Do you remember that? I think it was last year or maybe the year before. I don't remember.
It was and I remember a bunch of you guys picked 6 separate characters and then did a bunch of portraits. I actually,
yeah. So this is one of the 6,
Mm-hmm.
and this is a figure that I don't shoot. I own it because I love both Batman and Robin. Those are kind of just like pieces I wanted to own.
Yeah.
And I've got a lot of those things that I just don't shoot. Iron Giant, I've got him right over here.
He's coming up later too.
The Mondo one. This is like one of my first high-end collectibles from Mondo. Anyway, and he was one that I did for that 6 portrait series as well. And what was great about that is because even at that time, I was trying to think more conceptually. And this gave me an opportunity to just step back and like, the goal of this is to choose a character, 6 characters, and focus on the portrait and be very intentional. Don't try and do anything, outside of that, but focus on the character, the portrait. And it was nice because it allowed me, because sometimes when I work, I feel like I need to have like these boundaries. So it helps me as a designer. Like I need to know what lane I need to play in and what's it just helps me focus a little bit. And so with this feeling like it's very directed, I was able to just pull the figure out and then like, okay, I'm going to let the figure tell me what works. I did like Sabine from Black Series and did her in a really vibrant background as like spray paint and stuff. I did unmasked Darth Vader. I actually asked people to tell me characters what they wanted to see.
That's fun.
And that was cool because it was like it's kind of a wild card. And so did the Darth Vader the Empire Strikes Back Vader without the helmet. And so you can see his face, it's all pale. So that Darth Vader and Iron Giant. So it was just really cool to be able to just focus on each of those and not worry so much about concept, but just focus, kind of going back to what got me into it. Like just getting the figure and doing like a beauty shot. So that was a really fun series. And it was nice to kind of just focus on just the portrait photography. So I want to do that
really
again.
Cool. Yeah.
I need to bug Tom. Yeah.
Be good.
I love this figure. It's so good.
It's an interesting one to have too, and I'm glad you said it was for your collection. I have quite a few that I don't shoot either. We have a lot of like statues and stuff that we just kind of have to collect, and it's interesting how people gather things for themselves versus the hobby too, and what we gather just for the hobby and not for ourselves. So it's
and I was totally blown away when you were on our live stream and we did people were showing their collection and you walked there and look, everybody was just like, oh my gosh, that is amazing. Really jealous. So your collection is amazing.
It was a long time of being it set up, and then we used to have, my boyfriend had his own room, his man cave is what we called it, and it was just outgrowing that space. And then we have 2 children, so they need their own separate space. And so I'm like, well, you just put it in the living room, and he's like, really? I was like, sure, let's just
why not?
Yeah. And then it takes over. Yeah,
it took over.
It's fun though. Oh yes, another fun one.
Too fun. I love that little arcade. Like that is just that's too cool. That is cool.
This is an instance where the arcades are from prime to first. Josh builds these arcades, and these are kind of the early versions he was making by hand. It's like out of like foam core and stuff, maybe balsa wood. I'm trying to remember exactly what materials he used, but he makes these cabinets and he sells them today. But he's now got a like a wood router, and so all these pieces are much more like machined. But this was one where I ordered. He made one for me, and then I bought a handful of them. I think I've got like 6 of them. And so I just chose games that I liked. So the Marvel versus Capcom was one of them. And that was where I was like, okay, here's what I have. This is my subject. It's really the arcade game, this prop, this diorama piece, and what can I do around it? Yeah. And then I was like, okay, well, I've got these Marvel figures. I only have like one Street Fighter figure, which is Chun-Li. And then just kind of started coming up with ideas, setting up the figures and seeing what worked. A lot of times I'll just use my phone if I'm in the middle of setting something up. I'm like, okay, how does this angle look? What about this? Yeah. So that helps me with kind of, in a sense, like pre-production, what I would call, and kind of like what I do for work. But just with setting it up and like Chun-Li, I want her to win. And, I actually created the screen that's on there where it says Chun-Li wins.
I was wondering, like, I had a funny feeling you might have done that. That's great. It's too good.
And that's just Photoshop. But yeah, that was one where it's really, that was about the arcade. Yeah. And creating shot from that. Yeah.
You do a really good job of supporting other people through your own work too. I've noticed that. Like you really beef up the people that create these props, or I have one later on that you're going to see that is with like, I think the stickers from one of your friends too, that you took shots with like a long time ago. Oh, you'll see that. Okay. Yeah. It's just interesting that you fully think about each item that goes into the photo, whether it needs to be sourced or whether it needs to be just you and your imagination. Just the full concept around everything that you post is actually really admirable. So I love
Thank you. So. Thank you very much. I love this shot. I want to do more with the arcades because I've got, you can't really tell, but there's like asteroids. There's one that's called Food Fight, kind of in the middle. And then Time Crisis 2. Was like a shooting game. I did one with a stormtrooper with that one that I shot for him. One. Yeah. And he's like looking at the gun, like it's not working, like pointing it at his face, looking at the barrel. So those were fun. I need to do some more of those.
Yeah, it's just interesting and it's unique because it shows up on your feed and you're like, oh, this is really cool.
Yeah, that was also a shot that Richie, we had talked about on our live stream last night, but. It was cool because that was a photo. We were just talking and I was like, hey, you want to see the photo I'm working on? I'm just editing. He's like, yeah. And it was that one. And he was like, can you just show me how you edit your photos? And so we just did a screen share. I'm like, yeah, it's probably similar to how you do it. I do this, use these filters, whatever it might be. And then he was like, have you ever done this technique for sharpening? I'm like, oh, no. So that collaboration was really fun. That was actually the photo we were talking about last night. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah.
I just pulled this because I noticed that you had a bunch of like a little time frame where you had a bunch of drawings, and I just love the way you laid it out too. It's very clean and it's very you. It's like very organized.
Yeah, this is the kind of stuff you'll see on my invisible element page. A lot of this type of stuff too, if you scroll through that. But
this is super important. These sketches are. If I could draw, I probably would have done a sketch photo, but I can't. I have absolutely no sketchbook skill. But what is really amazing about this is I've said this to people in the past, and my art friends, if they're listening to this, are going to laugh because they've heard me babbling about this for like a decade. Yeah. Artists' sketchbooks are super fascinating. Yes. And I've always thought it would be a really fascinating show in either a museum or a gallery exhibition where it's not for sale. You can't buy it, but it gives you insight into the artist. And I mean, all kidding aside, Jason, if you can't tell, that's one of my biggest obsessions is people's brains and like why people do what they do and how they do what they do. Yeah. And I think sketchbooks have always intrigued me, and I think back and when I worked in the art field, I would constantly ask people if I could take like a few shots of their sketchbooks. So I would just collect like photographs of people's sketchbooks with like the writing in it And sometimes they'd look at me and they'd be like, why are you taking a photo of that page? I'm like, because that page is really interesting. And they're like, but there's really nothing on it. And I'm like, no,
Right.
everything is on it.
Right.
Like these are so cool. And yeah, like Steph said, you presented them unbelievably well, but just the fact that they are these little sketches, your whole page, like I said, gives you insight into who you are and your identity and stuff.
Nice.
But these little
my OCD.
sketches, but these little sketches are just, they're so neat. I love sketchbooks so much. I love people's sketchbooks. So
that was another thing as an artist, I struggled with. Honestly, feeling like my sketchbook every page needed to be beautiful. And so there was a while there where I just realized, man, I'm erasing because I feel like every page needs to be like a coffee table. Like the whole thing in itself needs to be coffee table presentable, as a sketchbook. And I realized this is stupid. Like a sketchbook, that's not the purpose of a sketchbook.
No, it isn't.
It's to get out your bad ideas and refine the ideas that can become great. And that, again, understanding the process, just how important that is, where you started to where you ended up. Like, I want to see people's BTS more than I want to see their final shot. Honestly, I want to see how they got to that. And again, it took me years to realize, like, that's not the purpose of a sketchbook. Like, it's important to show your success. It's important to share your failures too. And to say, hey, this is how it started from this little thumbnail sketch and then ended up here. But there were a bunch of different, I had to go through that process to get to that point. So yeah, it's fun to even just to go back in my old sketchbook and see with some of those older projects for myself. But yeah, let alone seeing everybody else's work, I'm so fascinated by too.
This is a lot of fun.
Man, I forgot about those.
We went pretty far down, so
I appreciate that.
Deep.
Yeah.
We'd like to.
This is the one I was
scroll.
talking about.
Yes.
This is
my buddy
remarkable.
Tony Bowie. He is an illustrator, and he does awesome work. I've known him before I started toy photography, because since I do illustration as well. He's an amazing designer and illustrator, and he's got his own brand. He's got these really, really great, like he's got some designer toys that he's getting into, these patches. He goes to Comic Con, he goes to Designer Con, he goes to other cons where he sets up his booth and he's got his prints and things. And so we've just been friends for a while, and I was getting into toy photography, and, I'd buy like some pins, I'd buy patches from him. And he's like, hey, I've got some new patches releasing. I love the stuff you've been doing with Work More or Less. Can I just send you these? And would you mind just like shooting them a couple for me? I'm like, yeah, I'd love to. That would be so fun. And that's kind of this, again, that's really where Invisible Element and Work More or Less, I'm seeing a lot more crossover opportunities. And so this was a fun one to do, and kind of really bringing in more the practical aspect of building kind of the scene and the diorama pieces and the trees and making the rocks and all that stuff. But really wanted to feature his work, and that needed to be what was most important. So
I think you nailed that. Even again, it's so funny to like talk about your work because you clearly have such a serious art and design background, but it is so cool that like your color choices here, like it made perfect sense. Like you could not have set it up any more perfectly. Like it does by choosing. Of course, that's always the nature of art in general. But like you do feature the patches because of what you chose as your backdrop and your foreground and your little trees and rocks and stuff. It ends up featuring the patches. You're putting the emphasis on what he created, and again, that's that very smart like designer brain of yours, just putting that out there, and it's really cool. It's really
funny
cool.
because even on the branding, like he's great at branding too. So the presentation of these patches, he's got. So I think the first one were like the set of dinosaurs, and the back for the patches, it was basically if you put them side by side, the artwork on the back of the packaging like connected. There's a volcano and all this stuff. And it's very much that kind of flat, like design aesthetic, very like much illustrator, like simple colors and stuff. And so it complements the patches quite nicely. And I was like, what if I just like take your artwork and then I cut it out and like do layered paper? He's like, yeah, I mean, I guess you can do that. But he really was like, no, I want you to take it beyond what I've created and do something different. And I was like, okay, like I would have just used his artwork because it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
But again, that collaboration was kind of fun to play with and see what he responded well to. And also just for the people who do follow me and may or may not even know who he is or this type of art that's available. It's fun to like shout people out and to like say, hey, if you like what I do and this is what I like, you might actually like it too. So yeah, that was a fun collaboration with Tony. He's awesome. You got to check out his work. He's cool.
And I just like the ground and everything, the textures you chose and everything is just, it just matches well. It's very eye appealing and eye catching, and I like orange. It's my favorite color, so that's just kind of like my thing. But I just
that works for you, yeah.
Yeah. So I just like them.
Yeah, that was all those pieces. I think I used for an Iron Giant shot originally. I think that's why I bought them. But
is it next? Yes. Well, it's not this one, but it's probably part of this series.
Same figure for sure. Yeah, that's my little trophy over there. This was when I first got this figure, and he stands at like 16 or 17 inches tall. And at the time I was like, I don't have a TV screen big enough to like shoot him. So I just went in the backyard. This is actually shot outside. And
that's what I was going to ask. Okay.
I just took him, and these are the trees, and I needed him to look large, because if I just stuck him straight out and then took a shot like this, then the trees were going to be way higher, like in my backyard, because they're tall pine trees and things. And so I'm like, okay, I'm like on the ground holding him up, like looking up as low to the ground as I can be. But yeah, there's something about this one when I was shooting it and actually getting the photo back and editing, like, man, that is just so cool how you get that scale. But when you know what you have the context in person, it's like, this is just a toy this big. But
yeah, that
was a little earlier on when I shot that. I was like, wow, toy photography is amazing, and you can do some cool stuff with it.
I love the light off of his different panels and stuff like that. Like, I mean, that is so great. The highlights versus the shadows here is just,
and especially with Iron Giant being, I mean, he's monochromatic. He's just gray. He's got different shades of gray. The eyes light up. I think I didn't really edit them, so I think that's just naturally how they looked. But that's the great thing about, like you were saying, like decisions you make with placement of lights. And for this one specifically, I'm just using kind of a natural light, but I was orienting the figure so that the light was hitting and highlighting, just the right side of his chest. So then you have shadow on the other side. And that really is great for this type of figure that doesn't have a lot of, it's got a lot of detail, but as far as it's just gray,
there's not a lot of contrast on him. He just is one
you
solid.
Have to lean on that light, and light will be your friend and kind of pull out all those details and stuff. But yeah, it's such a beautiful figure. I don't shoot that enough.
I love it.
Yeah, I also like the way that you might not put you might put a lot more effort into it than I know of, but like there's like a mood to it, like a tone to like how you shot this and how much you relate to this figure at this moment. And it might just be that it was fun taking a photo of it outside, but you could kind of tell and feel that when it's kind of looking there, just the way that you shot this, it looks like it was, you enjoyed the moment and have fun with it. And I think that's part of like toy photography is we should relate our own like experiences and fun into our images a little bit more, so that we can it's nice.
I agree with that, everything you said. Man, another good one. You're pulling out some old shots that some of them I forgot about.
Steph is so good at finding the good shots. She's so good at it.
I like you're diving deep into this. So this is Bluefin Brands and the Bandai War Machine. And I forgot exactly the title of that character. They all are very specific in names, but basically the War Machine, kind of samurai version of it. And this was at the time when I was working with them, with Bluefin, and they were actually sending me figures to shoot. And at the time, especially, it was like, it's always cool when you're able to get figures, but it was really interesting because this is stuff that, these are like imports. And so these figures are like, $80 at best. Like if you're finding them at Barnes and Noble or, and so they're just higher end figures they're kind of off my radar. They're cool, but I just couldn't afford to buy those when I could buy 4 Black Series figures for the same price.
Yeah.
And so to be able to get them and shoot them and kind of play with them and see how to create different shots, different moods was super fun. And it's still challenging too, because this is when I was doing some outdoor stuff as well. And, for me, sometimes it's like, to me, it looks like I'm just in my backyard when I see these photos. But to everyone else, it's just like, he's just outside and you're crafting your own like story with what you're seeing. Whereas I know the context. I'm in the backyard. The backyard looks like crap. I can see the fence line actually in this photo. Like,
nobody else can though. That's the thing.
Exactly.
You see it because you know it's there. And
Exactly.
that's that fascinating thing about scale and behind the scenes and stuff is, you see all this stuff and you recognize it as parts of, where you live, but to anybody else, it's perfectly distorted back there to the point where who cares? I don't know what it is.
Yeah. It's just texture. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, adding the little lens flare, that was kind of just, Photoshop post work, but I was like, it kind of adds to it. It makes it a little more interesting. Versus looking like just regular plastic or something.
Yeah, and sometimes I feel like just a little accent point like that is fun. It just, like you said, it elevates the photo. Like it would have been great before, but you're just like playing around. I've done that. Like where I'm just like, I want to do this instead.
And I will say, like, I'm nowhere near like Tom. I watch you, Tom. I absolutely love seeing how he edits. And there have been times when he's gone live and he's just like shared his screen, like, all right, this is how I'm doing he really brings out the eyes, as you guys know. And he's just so talented. I don't generally spend that much time. And my shots aren't as, I would say, painterly or as beautiful as a lot of what Tom creates. But it is fun, I find, to be able to utilize Photoshop. And I don't see it as cheating at all. When it's like, I'm trying to tell a story. What are the tools that are at hand? What can I do to enhance the message or the visual? And so I like using it when I can, and when it's, try not to go overboard at times. But
especially with toy photography, I mean, you're already playing with people's brains a little bit, like by creating images using it, trying to make characters that are, like this big look full size. You're already messing with the way that we see the photo. So like, is Photoshop really that different than just messing with scale? It's just, you're just digitally enhancing the image.
It's one thing if you're trying to do the ACBA stuff and then you're like, I'm going to Photoshop the text. Like that's one thing, but there's merit to all of it. And if you're going to claim like I'm only doing everything practical, but then you're using Photoshop, you're not being true to yourself. But at the end of it doesn't really matter. It's just you're creating a piece of art, and it's really subjective, and it's your creation. So, I like seeing all types of approaches.
It's interesting to be able to vary and challenge your own mind for that. I mean, I will never. Photoshop to me is like, it's going to be a lifetime of processes of trying to understand those kind of things. And so it's not like you have to hate on somebody who uses that as their main toolbox. So like, let them have their imagination, let them have their fun. It's not really that big of a deal. And if another person wants to have the challenge of trying to hide stands and add in word effects with the ACBA stuff, have fun with that too.
I love that. Yeah.
It's just like, I mean, I go out and jump in a creek. Like, it's not really like anything that's too exciting or interesting to most people, but people seem to like it. So it's just, it's just like my kids. I'm not going to care if they want to be a truck driver or a veterinarian. Like, let them do what they want to do and let them have fun.
It just
leave
express
people alone.
Their thoughts. Yeah, exactly. But it's also fun, just being able to have different approaches and different techniques at your disposal. So you can use them, you learn skills, and then you can use them when it makes sense. Even when there are times when I'm trying to do things practical because I just don't want to do, like, I don't want to paint out a stand. Like he's on like a big bamboo stick or something like that. And I'm like, I'm just going to crop them so I don't have to paint it out.
But no, you're right about the tools. Like, I think that is a great way of wording it, because Steph and I have talked about this on this podcast, is as we're one of my favorite things about doing these styles of different people was it has forced me to think outside of my comfort realm. And
Mm-hmm.
it's forced me to try some things that I probably wouldn't have tried otherwise. And
Yeah.
so, like, learning other things, trying other things, experimenting and seeing how you like it, I think is really important. So
Yeah.
I would encourage people who aren't comfortable with Photoshop, just go play with it. Just go see what happens. And no, you may hate everything you create with it. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But try it, see how it goes. And or for those of you who have never, done practical, for those of you who
Mm-hmm.
haven't had the opportunity to blow up a firework behind one of your figures, like, do
Yeah.
it. Go blow up
Yeah.
a firework. It's fun. Like,
It is.
go enjoy it. And it's only gonna it's gonna give you a fuller experience. And again, you may try to take a photo with a firework and it looks like crap, and you just go, oh well, that didn't work. Who
Moving on.
cares?
Yeah.
Moving on. And
Yeah.
so yeah, I totally agree with that, having different tools, and just because you never know when you're going to want to try to use it, and it's better if
Yeah.
you know it
Yep.
beforehand, and then when you have to use it, you can pull it out, versus, oh God, now I got to learn this real fast because this is what I want to do, but I've never tried it before. So,
Exactly.
it's,
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm gonna put my little boss hat on because we're learning about empathy at work, and I think actually understanding where other artists are coming from and what they find enjoyable, it should be recognized too. It doesn't really matter.
oh yeah.
Like, you
Yeah.
should really
Yeah.
understand that it's their page, it's their self-expression. Let them be. So it's just kind of
Absolutely.
there's my 5 cents.
Yeah.
And encourage
Anyway.
it too.
Yeah, I like this War Machine shot. Like, I saw the other ones. Your C-3PO shot was like the second one that I really liked.
Oh,
'cause
I
it had
love
the
that one. Yeah.
sunset colors. But I really liked that there wasn't like Iron Man, Captain America. Like, you picked some really cool figures to showcase for this series. Like C-3PO and War Machine. Like, I really appreciated the fandom for like the actual
Yeah.
classic other side characters. So it was
Yeah.
kind of
This
fun.
line, I would say this line, even though I don't really shoot it much anymore, I think this is one of the more creative lines. This
Mhm.
whole samurai, Marvel and Star Wars like
Agreed.
mashups. They're so cool. I didn't buy the Mando one because he was like $120 or
Yes.
something like that. I'm like, I can't justify
Not
that.
doing- yeah, I know.
But
I know.
but they're beautiful. And I love the designs. They're so cool.
Yeah. There's a lot of details too to focus
Yeah.
on. You have so many options. It's just, it looks stellar.
I need to get those out again. Oh man, this is old too.
Going back.
Yeah, this brings So this is before I lost the trash panda's foot in the carpet. I think I had it for like one night, and then the next thing I knew, like, where's his foot?
Man.
Never gonna find that. So this was a collaboration with Hasbro too. So they sent me the Marvel Guardians wave, and again, like, getting figures straight from them was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. And so I did a whole series where I didn't really know what to do, honestly. And I kind of, for me, I felt like I kind of just went the easy way of just doing kind of like a colored background. For me, I'm like, I'm just gonna do stars, and
Yeah.
I feel like I could do better now, but at the time I was like, man, I feel like I'm phoning this in. But I love the little baby Groot, and I think
Me too.
Rocket is actually holding Luke Skywalker's binoculars from like the
I was
farm
gonna
boy Luke.
ask.
But I think this is when he was telling, right, this is the detonator. You're gonna do this. Don't push this button. And like, I think I saw that in the previews.
I'm
And
Groot.
I just love that.
It's such a good scene. It's such a good scene. I love this. When you I just, because I'm sure people would be interested in this.
Mhm.
Like, when with the Hasbro stuff and any of these, like, did people reach out to you, or did you seek people out? Which way did you feel worked,
Right.
and which way would you, if people were interested in such a thing, would you encourage?
Yeah, that's always a tricky one, because with anybody, it's kind of, I would say some of it is luck.
Yeah.
Some of it's being at the right place at the right time, just like any opportunity.
Mhm.
This spawned from when they started the first Hasbro toy pick hashtag, and that was for around Force Awakens. And so the toys were out and they called on the community. And I think it was kind of because I think Johnny, Sergeant Bananas, I think he was kind of the ambassador for that. And I think they even kind of like partnered up with him, like, hey, Johnny's kind of heading this up. And here's the hashtag. If you have the figures, take photos and we will choose some and actually present those at Comic-Con and have them printed out on a board and stuff. And so I kind of lucked out. And some of the guys who are still working with Hasbro are some of those from the same original kind of collaboration.
That's cool.
And so we kind of, we kind of got lucky. We were there. We had the figures. We took the photos, and we were kind of on the short list in a sense. And they used our photos for Comic-Con that year. I didn't get to go, but I don't know if Spencer or someone else took some photos and sent it to me. It was like, holy, this is crazy. Like our photos of these toys that we're collecting and that we love are being represented. Our work is printed out and on this wall at Comic-Con, which is like the Mecca. Like I want to go to Comic-Con and wasn't able to go that year. And so that was a lot of the other opportunities I've had with Hasbro have kind of trickled down through that. And same with like the Marvel team. It was some of the same people I was working with Star Wars. And they're like, hey, we've got, would you like to shoot this wave? I'm like, sure, let's do it. And so some of that stuff continues with like the promotional type shots that we do for them.
That's cool.
Yeah, there've been a couple times when I've reached out, like Super Impulse. They do the miniatures. So like the miniature, if you recall the last photo I did with Mandalorian and Grogu, the 1/6 Hot Toy Mando, and they're playing like with Hot Wheels. The Hot Wheels cars are the Super Impulse, like world's smallest. And they're actually, they are Hot Wheels. They roll. There's like a track that came with it. And so that was a group that I reached out because I was seeing their products being used, and like Dwayne shoots toys and some other people like, these are really cool. I've seen a couple in stores, and I just said, hey, is there any way that we can team up and collaborate on something? And they said, well, we like your work. We'll send you some stuff. And it was unpaid, but it was great because they sent me some things and I was able to use those. And I had like a little Viewmaster that actually works. And it was, it's pretty small. And I used the 1/6 Stormtrooper in one of my shots, like looking through it, and it was just silly, but that was one where I reached out and they were open to it. So
that's cool.
Very cool.
Really
I think it's in how you approach too, because you have to recognize that a lot of these companies probably get a lot of a lot of people asking, or maybe not asking, but like, hey, I shoot toys, here's my address, if you can send me some stuff, I'll shoot it. You got to approach it differently. And over the years, I've actually had the opportunity of meeting the people who've represented Hasbro that I've worked with, meeting them in person at Comic-Con. And so extending that relationship to in person and being able to talk and get to know them beyond just seeing our work on Instagram has also been beneficial. So
going full circle with the being person and seeing your face is like important. So
it is. It really is. It really is. And just opening yourself up and being vulnerable in a sense, right?
Yeah, perfect. So we're going to the challenge now. So this was the summer shot that you sent over for this, which is perfect.
Yes.
Is this outside?
This is all on the beach. This is all true. Well, yes, this is all shot outside. I was in Florida and on vacation, and took these guys with me because I'm like, we're going to the beach. I got to bring scare troopers.
You have to. Yeah.
And I set these guys up. It's practical. The only thing is the shovel and the buckets. Those I scaled down in Photoshop. So what I did was if you look on this post, I show behind the scenes of kind of how I did it. So basically shot the figures and realized, okay, I want to have a shovel in one hand and then the bucket in the other. So what I did was I had this set up, and then right over here, I moved each one of the buckets, but had the same light. And so that the sun's coming from here. So I need the handle to be kind of like at a 3/4 angle. So I put that bucket by itself at the same angle where the sun's hitting it, and then made sure that those would kind of work together. And that was like the first day I was on the beach. So if I messed up, then I could go back out the next day and kind of set it up again. But yeah, basically took one of those, the shovel I put in the ground, and again, the same lighting, and then was able to just composite those together in Photoshop. And because the lighting is true to what was actually happening at that moment with the sun, it looks real because, if I flip the bucket around, the shadowing is going to be wrong. And your eye catches
against the sun. It's going to be
weird.
weird.
So your eye actually catches those things, and you're like, something's off. I don't know what it is. I can't articulate it. So that's why it was really important to set this up and then put the objects that I was going to shrink down at the same kind of in the same direction. So, but that was compositing, but everything else is practical. So I actually built that little castle. Yeah.
It's a lot of work for some buckets and a shovel too. So it's like really cool.
Yeah. So like I said, if you go back to this one, it's not too far, but if you go back, I show you the photos that I took of the buckets. And then I think I show you it with the background, and you can see the waves. And then I show you it with the background cut out. So I think I'm pretty sure that's how I showed it. Because again, going back to like showing BTS and showing the process, like that's just as interesting. People want to see that. Yeah. So I'm very conscious of like to record like as I'm doing it. Like, okay, let me step back and take a picture of all this.
I'm so bad at that. That's probably one of my worst. And people will ask me about it, and it's not only like that I don't take photos, but sometimes I'll forget like what I was even doing. I'm like, I don't remember how I took this. I don't remember what I was. It's a strange thing, but I need to start just doing that, even just for myself. And like you said though, people want to see that, and I tried it a few times early on, and then I just didn't continue with it because I'd forget and I'd take down the whole photo and be like, oh crap, I never took a photo of that. So
it's really easy to like, once you get in the zone, you're like, all right, let's tear it down. Oh no, dang it, I should have left that up. Yeah, I've done that many times, but now I'm really just trying to get in the habit of, even if it's just taking a couple of pictures with my camera or with my phone, and then doing a couple like just video, like just letting the video run and just like doing a couple different angles, because then if you could make a quick reel from it, and then you've got something. But I just try to get in that habit of doing it. And then when I know I'm building props, then I'll pull that to the side and like try to be intentional taking the pictures of the props by itself, so it just gives you more. And like you said, it also reminds you of going back and reminds you of what you did to get that image.
Your process.
I
have to ask, just because it's so good, the color of the buckets. Did you purposely go buy buckets that were these colors, or did you happen to have buckets that were these colors?
We happened to have those because it was a vacation with our family and our extended family as well, and there were some smaller kids, and so we had those toys. But I think the little blue kind of turquoise like sandcastle like kind of scoop, I think that was red. Okay. But I think that was the only one that I shifted the color.
That's crazy.
But no, I had the red bucket, had the blue bucket. And again, very intentional about that, because I wanted to make sure it wasn't going to draw too much attention away from what was happening with them.
Yeah.
So
it blends right into the shoulders, and it's just so
so good. So it's funny because those are subconscious things that I don't really even. I know I'm doing it, but when you point it out, I'm like, oh yeah,
I did.
I'm thinking through all that stuff.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Nice job.
All right, you ready for my massacre that I had to do?
I'm so excited. I'm so excited about this part.
I love this so
awesome.
Much.
Oh my gosh.
So wasted. I love it. He's so drunk. That Ewok is drunk.
Is that the new Hot Toys Ewok they released recently?
Yeah, I was so worried he was just going to take a dive, and then I was not going to get a shot.
Are you you're outside of, it looks like, of course. Is this like a little like an actual like pond, or not a pond, but
it's in my backyard.
Like a fountain or anything?
No, it's a Tupperware with some rocks from my backyard and some sticks that I just threw in some foam, because I was like, I have to make this I have time. I was like trying to have a quick dinner and barbecue at the same time. And I was like, this is going to be perfect because Jason has everything at home. And I'm going to make it like an indoors thing.
Yes.
And then
you did do an indoor shot.
Basically. And then he kept spinning. The little flamingo was like spinning. And I was just like, stay put for a couple seconds. Let me get this. And I'm like, he's going to go down. But
oh my God.
That's
it's a drink
amazing.
cozy for bachelorette parties. I guess they have those now. I don't know, for like you put your beer in them, like
the
a little
drinks.
flamingo, and I'm
And
like,
then
he's
it
perfect
floats.
6 scale.
That's so good.
But like what I love about that is this scale. Like you did such a great job with. I think I've seen or something similar, like a duck or something like that. That's in a little inflatable like drink thing. But when you put like a Black Series figure on it, it still looks gigantic. Which I know they sell those in real life. Like I think at one point we had a flamingo like this that was like
huge. Yeah,
it's ridiculous. It looks stupid in the pool. But what I love about the 6 scale is like the detail that you're seeing, even like underneath the foot. Like if this was a Black Series figure, the foot would have like a stamp in it. And
I was gonna say the Hasbro logo and the pin hole in it, and
yeah. So that was, I mean, I don't know if that was intentional or not, but that was really smart to use him because you got so much more detail in the figure, and it scales so well with the flamingo little blow up, and his little drink too.
So good, his little drink.
That's great. I think another thing if you want me to critique it or not, the other thing that I love is that you've got those foreground elements, because I guess you were saying it's in Tupperware, but I have no idea. I mean, I can't really tell. And so it's nice to just have that because it really draws your eye into beyond what's kind of blurred in the foreground to the focus of the shot. And obviously that flamingo is so bright, it like calls your attention. So yeah, that's awesome. I love that. That's so good.
So good. It's so good. This makes me
You
so
have fun
happy.
shooting that?
Oh, I had a blast. It was and my son enjoys watching me do this, and he always has ideas. Like we'll be looking around like at Target, and he's just like, "You need this for a photo." And I'm like, "Okay, bud." So let's do that. But I got this flamingo, and he's like, "Who is this for?" I'm like, "Oh, it's for Wicket." He's like, "The Ewok," and I was like, "Yes." This is like perfect. Because once I knew you were gonna be on the show, I was like, I have to get something more like fun and stuff like that. I'm like, I've never done anything like this. Like Scott says, I usually just go play in the water, but I was like, I wanted to have some more fun with
that's so cool. This is really, I love this part. This is amazing. It's one thing to have somebody on, but another thing to kind of like you're saying, do like studies in a certain style or techniques and stuff. That's so great. I really am honored. Like this is really cool. It's such a good shot, Steph.
Oh, thank you.
It's so good. I love it. I love it so much.
I put all 3 of Scott's on here, so I made like a little collage. So prepare yourself for my craziness. So.
Yep.
It's funny. My whole process. I wish I had a video of like what was going on with me when I was doing this, because I seriously like I had it all set up. I'd gone upstairs, had the TV set up, I had lights, took the photos, they were done, they were on the camera, go downstairs, on the computer, do. And I don't know, it was like this moment where I was just like, no, this is not what I'm supposed to, I need to go back. I need to go like start over, because I just basically had just a set of 3 doing all that, that stuff, and it was not right. And then Rachel, who was on our show,
Mischievous
Minis, made this shell for me, the seashell, and sent it, and I got it, and it was that weird moment where like you talk about how you like to support other artists, and it's like that's part of this. That's the part of this is the community and what we do as a community. And so I was like, that's it. And it reminded me, like, you have the little enamel pin photograph that was one of your photos, and I was like, all right, well, there's that. I have to do that shot. So I took that one, and then Steph and I had my wife do just random logos for us and stuff, like back I don't even remember, it was a couple months ago, and we made like fun little shirts and stuff. And I was like, okay, so I'm going to incorporate myself. This is only I think this is only the second time I've put myself in a photo. And the other time I put myself in a photo was for a photographer who puts themselves in photos sometimes.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so I had to do that. And then I was making sure that I was wearing the F-Stop Rebel shirt because it's not something I typically do. And then, and then
shameless plug. That's what
absolutely. It had to be done. And then the fun photo of the Tusken Raiders just
that's great,
drinking out in the desert.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't even say like I would never say that I own that style, because I've seen so many other people do that type of work where it's just kind of like takes you out of the universe in a little bit of a way, but you know, it's still very much like, yeah, sure, why wouldn't Tusken Raiders drink together? Like, why wouldn't they break bread? Like, and I think there's something really fun and unique about that. So that's cool that you're picking up that theme that I've been kind of influenced by in my work and shot that. And also, like, that's hilarious, the whole like putting like, I realized when you were showing the photos that follow the one with you in your shirt, I'm like, oh yeah, I do that for like the unboxings that I've done
with the figure. You put the figure in front. So I was holding him, he's got his little drink in his hand, and I was just like, dude, I'm just chilling with him. But this was a blast. This was a definite, it made my brain think a lot. And I had a really good time letting the gears start
that's great.
cranking, because I think that was what was so much fun about thinking about your style and thinking about what, you know, your identity out there was an adventure. It was really an adventure.
Well, sorry for all the pain I may have caused.
No, it was great. I would do it again in a heartbeat. It was a blast.
Nice. Well, I'll come on next episode too, if you want
please. Let's just make my head really explode. But but yeah, it was really fun getting to really look at your work and really think about it and think about what makes, you know, work more or less an experience, what makes it fun for people, why people want to go visit it, why people follow it, why, you know, it's so clear. It's so clear when you really look at it, why those things are, why people grasp it and really enjoy. So
well, that's very, very kind of both of you to say. It's when I really do say it, I'm very honored, because that, you know, anytime somebody recognizes the work you do, just like, man, that feels good. But for you guys to take that a step further and actually take the time out of your schedule to do something inspired by someone else, like I don't even know if I've experienced that before. Like knowing that somebody's really put the time and done that because of the work that I've put out, and so to know that it's inspiring in some way or another, it's really moving. So I really appreciate you guys. That's awesome.
We love this. It's I'm happy. I'm always happy if I'm still waiting. I still haven't had somebody who like was just like, that's garbage. That does not, that makes me feel terrible. Like, what, this is what you think I do? Like, I still haven't had someone do it. I hope someone does it at some point, but I'm just, it's got to happen eventually. But
it's not, though. You do great work, man.
It really is fun. And Steph and I think both agree with this. This is the reason we do this. We love this part of it. I sometimes honestly, I sometimes like doing this podcast with Steph more than I even like just taking the photos. Like sometimes just doing this and hanging out with Steph, and she was just saying we need to do another live stream next week, and I'm like thinking to myself, I'm like, yeah, we do need to do that, because I think you are a perfect example of what this community is supposed to be about. And I think a lot of people forget and get caught up in a lot of BS. And I think your page is one of those kind of like beacon reminders for people, like, no, this is what we're supposed to be doing. This is the point of it. And I think that's what your Instagram account represents. So
that's huge. And that's what I want, because at the end of the day, this is something that I love doing. But what keeps me here, I think what keeps you guys here obviously too, is it's being part of this community, because it's really it's become so important to me for creative fulfillment, but then also just feeling like I belong somewhere. I mean, with
Mm-hmm.
not being able to, not as have as much time as we did like when we were in high school or college, where we could just go out whatever until 4 o'clock in the morning and then wake up a couple hours or,
Yeah.
10 hours later.
Yeah, or that.
It's just not like that. And so
No.
it's amazing that even my really close friends who live maybe 10 miles from here, I don't get to see them that often because they're just as busy.
Mm-hmm.
But this is like immediately I can connect with our tribe, with our people, and be inspired, and hopefully inspire others to be encouraging to try new things and learn from one another. That's the reason why I'm still here, because if it was just taking pictures, I think that was kind of like before when I was doing stuff through, the earlier, like Flickr was like the platform where I was sharing some of my work, and you had some people who were commenting, but I did want to hear what people thought. And if it didn't get a good response, I was like, maybe my work's just not that good, or it's not people, people aren't interested, or it's not being seen. And whereas here, I feel like even if it's just 3-4 people who are commenting or talking about your images, or you're able to have dialogue with, like, there's so much fulfillment even there. And even not you're just talking about life. It's become such a spectacular place to really be invested in. So I just want to spread positivity and love and grace and just to let people enjoy the creative side, and just being a kid, and even if you're not shooting, just saying, I love this stuff, it's fun, to support others, and that's what I'm all about. And I'm glad that I'm able to do that tangibly in like this community and with my friends and people here. So
good. Keep doing it.
I love it. I love it. And that last photo you had, those little coloring pages, you can download those for free. Right? You can download those for free on my website. Yep.
Oh man,
I did that during. I did the illustrations a long time ago, but when COVID hit last year, I was like, I'm going to make these available so people can, since they're at home with their kids, you can take the images. I'm not selling them because I don't own them, and I'm going to get, I don't want to be on Star Wars bad list. So just there's 3 books for each of the original trilogy films, and the characters from them, and the photo, or the actual ones that I printed out were from people who had downloaded it and then sent me photos from either they colored it or their kids colored it.
Oh, that's really
all
cool.
Those pictures printed out were from people in the community and their kids who had colored, or themselves who had colored those pages, and then I printed those out for this shot. So
that's outstanding.
It's pretty fun to do that. And also, just again, people were like, this is great. I've needed this. My kids need something. I'm running out of options. And so having the coloring book available for people to use and let their kids just have something to focus on. They can print out as many pages as they want. I felt like I was able to kind of help give them something to do, just be entertained for a little bit. And, these are old characters that I drew years ago. I was like, let's repurpose them. And it worked more or less too. So. Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to say that if you wanted to, go down.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, Jason, truly, truly, truly a pleasure. I can't even begin to tell you. It was really, really wonderful having you on here. Like I said, I like what you represent. I like what you're doing, and I think that there's clearly a lot of people out there who really love what you're doing. So we all appreciate you quite a bit. Cool. So,
like I said, you both are so kind, and I truly mean it. Like, it's really an honor to be able to sit here and talk to you, and just like talk about what we love together, and lift one another up and encourage one another and be inspired by one another. So this really has been such a pleasure and really fun to get to know you more, Scott, and also to talk with you even more than we have, Steph. You guys are great, and I'm so excited about what you're doing and just how you're lifting the community and like spotlighting different artists as well.
Yeah.
You guys are great.
You guys are doing the same thing with your lives right now. Like you and Richie have brought in so many people on there and so many different things, and you had a whole live on designer toys, which threw me
Oh
for a
yeah,
loop because it's like a new thing for me. And
that was fun.
so take a step back and notice that you're doing something great too, Jason. It's not just like anything with the conversation. We're glad to have you on here. It's like we chose to have you come back because Scott and I were like, we need to have Jason on here and have a 2-hour chat about toy photography.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, I will gladly come on and talk your ear off anytime you want. So I love doing it. It fuels me. It's so funny after I'm done with every live stream or every conversation like this. And I go down and kind of talk to my wife. She can just tell, like, I'm amped. Like,
amped.
I'm
I know.
Fueled. I'm fueled. That feels so good. So she
Yep.
always is kind of like smiling at me because she knows and she gets me. So, yeah, I feel pretty blessed to be able to do what I do and to be able to have made the connections and relationships and friendships. Just having the ability and opportunities to. So, I'm gonna keep doing it. It's so fun and rewarding and fulfilling. So
awesome.
Perfect.
Thank you so much, Jason.
Thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you. And your website's on your Instagram page, right? I didn't put it on the last slide, so
Yes.
they
So
can find everything
just
on there.
another thing, if you go to workmoreorless.com, if
Mhm.
you go there, you can download the coloring pages. But then I've also got a section where I think it's called Learn, and so there's tutorials and behind the scenes shots. So with the tutorials, I talk about how I do digirama. So the background with using a monitor or a TV screen. I kind of taught. There's like a three. No, I think I compressed it into one. But basically, a long article that talks about how to do that, and also building some dioramas. Like I built a brick wall and a concrete like cinder block wall that were magnetized. Again, like you're saying, Scott, like I love learning about it. And figure, like, if I'm going to do it, might as well just share my knowledge with people in the same way. So I've got tutorials there that people can check out too. So I need to update it. There's other things I want to add to it, but again, it's just time. But there's some stuff that's still of value at workmoreorless.com. And then if you're interested in seeing what I do professionally, my own business that I one-man shop, invisibleelement.com is my other website. And also the same name on Instagram as well, at Invisible Element, if you're interested in that. So, but yeah, that's where I do my stuff. So
awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
It's got to be proud of me because I remember to ask everybody about their websites and stuff because I never always forget.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's good.
All
It's
right.
good. Well, you guys are awesome. Thank you again so much. It's been a pleasure. It's been absolutely fun. And yeah, I'm excited to continue to keep up with what you're doing and watch your interviews and get to know other people that you're spotlighting. So this has been fun.
Yeah, you're part of the group now. So you're
I
gonna
know.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
The SBN crew.
Yeah.
I love
I'm
it.
gonna hit the big red button. Hold on.
Hit the big red. Well, y'all, thank you for listening to another wonderful episode of the combined SBN F-Stop Rebel podcast. Truly a pleasure. I hope you enjoyed everything. Remember, please do not grow up. It's a waste of time. I am Scott, F-Stop Rebel, and there's obviously Steph.
Yep, I'm still here, and you can find me at Slag My Thrilla or the SBN. You'll see all the credits on the end, but I always want to say, just guys, stay awesome and keep it up.